and thank you for joining me for the Vampire Talk Show. I'm your host, Valaine. Val to my friends. My roommate discovered my coffin under the concrete floor of the basement in her new house and woke me up from a 100-year nap. Now, I'm reconnecting with old friends, making new ones, and of course, making a podcast. We are going to nerd out tonight on our show, but first, I would like to chat about something. Gambling. So, gambling is more immersed in the culture now in this century. Back in the day, in the 20s, gambling was quite frowned upon. In fact, it was kind of a blue-collar sort of tradition, throwing dice in an alley and whatnot. And it's usually reserved for boozers who are trying to get next week's wine taken care of. Anyway, but now, gambling is everywhere. In fact, I went to a gas station recently, and boom, there were slot machines right inside the gas station. I had no idea that it was so proliferated into today's culture. Gambling was frowned upon, yes, but I did gamble here and there because it is sometimes glamorous, especially if you're in Monaco, whatever. And my game, roulette. I do love roulette because it is such a rush. It's one tiny little space on a wheel that you're trying to fetter out if it's actually going to win or not. In fact, I had a psychic friend who was kicked out of many casinos because they could always tell what it was going to land on next. And unfortunately, the casinos don't really like it when you win. Slot machines seem to be pretty easy to use, but they don't seem to pay out as much as, say, a card game. Although card games tend to be a little bit intimidating. There's nothing more intimidating than pulling up a chair at a table and having everybody look at you and trying to size you up and see if you have a tell. It's, just very creepy. But one thing that I think is, just a little bit annoying is now sports betting is very popular. And it seems to interrupt actual games and the sports. You'll have one camp where people can't watch sports without betting, and then you have the other camp where people are so tired of hearing about betting that they just want to enjoy the game for the game's sake. But anyway, you must remember to do it in moderation, just like any other vice. Otherwise, you can go bust and that's never fun. I'd rather be a winner than a loser. Anyway, I digress. Let's go on with the show, shall we? Tonight's guest is one of the nerdiest people I've seen on Twitter, and she has a couple of books, the Encyclopedia of Parapsychology and Researching the Paranormal, How to Find Reliable Information About Parapsychology, Ghosts, Astrology, Cryptozoology, Near-Death Experiences, and more. What a title. And she's also spearheading the Midwest Boo Fest on August 3rd in Jeffersonville, Indiana. Please welcome to the program, Courtney Block. Hello, Courtney, darling. How are you?
Hi, Val. I'm doing great. That was an amazing introduction. Thank you for having me.
So glad to have you. Yes, you are the liminal librarian that everybody just adores on Twitter and Instagram and what have you. So can you tell my listeners a little bit about this amazing conjunction you have between being a research expert and the spooky paranormal world?
Yes. Oh my gosh. First of all, can I just say I love being called a nerd. It is like the best compliment.
I think nerd is a good term. I honestly do. And, the producer of this podcast, Allie, she is also quite the nerd. And yes, so when I say nerd, it is definitely not a derogatory term.
No, not at all. I love it. Yeah, I can talk a little bit about that convergence. I've always been interested in the paranormal since childhood, probably like so many of us.
Hmm.
And I also love being a librarian. A huge part of that for me is just connecting with people and the roles that libraries fill in our society too. I think a lot about how, what other places in society can you go without having any reason to be there and just, spend all day and not have to like spend a thing.
Hmm.
Um, and so basically, I just started thinking a couple of years ago, how can I marry these two parts of myself? And it kind of just emerged into showing people how to find just really great information about the spooky stuff that they're into.
Yes, I feel that a lot of paranormal investigators, when they first start out, research is not at the forefront of their mind. Gadgets are usually the first thing that they think about. There's nothing more like satisfying than researching a haunted property and then finding things confirmed in your actual paranormal investigations. It's kind of a rush. So, what is your favorite tool for finding information on, say, a haunted property of some kind?
Oh my gosh, that's a great question. I love using old newspaper databases, historic
Mm.
newspaper databases. And those can often be accessed through your local public library, who will probably have um, a database or a physical collection of old newspaper articles from the area. Chronicling America through the Library of Congress is another great newspaper database. And that's because old newspapers gave you so much tea. And I'm actually kind of wondering, Val, if you yourself have been written about in a historic newspaper and what they might have printed about you.
Oh, yes. I'm sure I've been written about, but I used to be a gossip columnist for various newspapers in New York, but way back in the day. But now that I think about it, and now that I know about these databases, I might want to go back and actually go down memory lane and pick up a few and see what I wrote back in the day. But yes, I would be interested to well, it would be kind of like Googling myself, I suppose, but it's all old newspapers, so.
That's great. It really would be. It's like the historic version of Googling oneself is reading about the stuff. And look, old newspaper articles are so good. Truly, something that I like to do just for fun is browse through old newspaper articles. I'm talking at least 100 years ago
Mm.
and older, because they just give you so much tea. They posted everybody's business for
Oh, yes.
everybody to see. And for the researcher, it's gold.
Oh, yes. Yes, no, we were all quite catty back in the day. Yes, we would print anything and everything, and usually true. Anyway, um, what is one of your favorite recent stories that you've come across?
Oh my goodness, that's such a great question. Um, I am always reminded when I start talking about historic newspapers and digging into that about a story that I came across that happened in my hometown in the late 1800s. The initial article that I found was that there was there was a man who claimed that he was being visited by the ghost of a man he had killed like 3 years prior.
Oh my
And
goodness.
right? And I was like, wait a minute. This has everything. This has got murder, it's got ghosts, it's got what was so hilarious is that the man claimed that the ghost was talking to him about um the latest like cigars and tobacco and the best place to be buried in the new cemetery that was being built. And it was just the detail of things that apparently this ghost would just show up every night and talk about, in
Wow.
addition to the fact that he was showing up at all, was fascinating.
Yes, the subject matter. I love the idea of a ghost coming in and saying, "Hey, by the way, there are these plots in this cemetery. They are going to go quickly. You should jump on the opportunity and get yourself a plot." I just
Exactly.
love that idea. Ghost stories from the late 1800s, I feel, are just outlandish and just crazy. There's one story nearby, can't remember where, but there's a placard about it, and it's a ghost that like to cut up people's clothes with scissors. This family was just like inundated with ghostly scissor sounds in their house, and then they would go through their clothes, and there were holes in all of them. It's very creepy. And
That
apparently,
is amazing.
I know, and apparently the ghost, I think, was like a visitor or something, and that they turned him away, and he ended up passing away in like the cold or whatever. I'm not quite sure what the details are, but now that I am armed with how to look it up, now I'll have to go and see all about it, and maybe I'll post a little mini-sode about it.
Yes. I love that. I love this idea of that ghost just exacting revenge, like getting revenge from beyond the grave. Like, hey,
Mhm.
you didn't help me out when all I needed was a little bit of warmth. I'm gonna take some pieces of your clothes. And I feel like the world needs more of these stories.
Yes, I love a vengeful ghost. I do. Because in recent, paranormal TV stuff, there's always things about, demons and, devils and satanic stuff and whatever. Not my favorite kind of avenue for them to go down. However, I do like the idea of a vengeful ghost because, it's almost like ultimate pettiness, and I do love a good petty like revenge that people have. Speaking of ghosts, I think something was just typing on my keyboard, and it wasn't me. Anyway, that is very strange. That and it even turned down the sound. That is very weird. Okay, sorry. I'm freaking out just a touch because nothing. I did not touch my keyboard, and then there's stuff written on here. It says plus, minus, minus, plus.
Val, who is coming to exact their revenge?
I don't know. Maybe I invoked that scissor ghost. I hope not, because my clothes are priceless. They're vintage, technically. My goodness, Mr. Ghost, or ghost person, please don't cut up my clothes. Thank you. Um, so not only are you an amazing researcher and you've written books, but now this Midwest Boo Fest that I hear so much about. And actually, I will be there, not in an official capacity, mind you, but just for funsies. And Allie will also be there during the day. So.
I'm so excited.
Oh, yes. I can't wait to meet all of these people. So, can you talk a little bit about Midwest Boo Fest? What can people expect, and why did you want to put this together?
Oh my goodness. Thank you for asking. Well, first of all, I have to say that Boo Fest came about due to the efforts of my wonderful friends and co investigators in a research group, Boo 812.
Hmm.
Here in Southern Indiana, we like to call ourselves the Boo Bays, if you will.
I love that so much on so many levels.
my fellow boobays, Katie and Kristen, along with a wonderful local business owner, Annie. The three of them have really spearheaded this, so I cannot take credit at all. But we have wanted to host a paranormal convention in this area for some time, just as a way to have another fun, spooky
Mm-hmm.
event that is in this particular area,
Mm-hmm.
that people don't have to necessarily, uh, people in this area can attend. Because sometimes you hear about things that are, you know, all the way across the country, um,
Mm-hmm.
or you might, want to attend or take part in yourself. And so we were kind of thinking, why don't we just create this in this area? And so we're going to have vendors, all types of vendors, creative, spooky, weird people. We have a whole lineup of wonderful speakers, and it is a 1 day event. And there's also going to be an online attendance option where you can see all of the speakers live streamed. There will be interviews with the vendors, because we also want to make sure that accessibility wise people feel like they can take part, because there's so many reasons why you might not be able to attend, for child care, elder care, chronic health, or maybe you're, Val, like you're stuck in a coffin, like under a floorboard. So
Yes, that
yeah.
is the downfall of the downside, I should say, of being a vampire. Usually, these paranormal conferences and whatnot happen during the day, so which I think is interesting because usually paranormal people are nighttime people. So,
Right.
but I do love the idea of an online sort of version of this conference and making it more accessible. Because you're right, it's difficult to go to all of the weirdo gatherings and see all your friends and that sort of thing. So it is nice to be able to just log in and be part of the conversation. That's wonderful. Um, so also, as if you're not busy enough, you're also working on your third book about haunted libraries. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. I um am working on my third book. It's going to be called Inside the World Haunted Libraries, and it'll be out next year, uh, at some point mid-year. And yeah, I've always wanted to write a book that combined my love of the paranormal with libraries.
Mm.
And what I'm really hoping to do is capture the lived experiences that people have had inside libraries, whether that be from library workers or not, just capturing the human experiences that are happening
Hmm.
inside these places. So as much as I possibly can, I am going to have firsthand accounts in from people who have had encounters in all types of libraries. So, I mean, if you have had an encounter in a library or know of anyone who has, or anybody listening, I would love to hear about it.
Well, you heard it here first. Yes. Please reach out to Courtney Block about your spooky library experiences. And contact info will be in the show notes. I think it's interesting. I libraries like theaters. I think personally, I feel like every library is haunted to a certain extent. Some are more haunted than others, have more activity, etc. But I feel like every library is haunted because of all of the human emotions that are in there, and all the information being processed. There's a lot of energy in there. Just like, in a theater, there's a lot of emotions, there's stories being told, and it's entertaining. And, I mean, if I was a ghost and not a vampire, I think I would spend my time at a theater for free. and go to a library and read over people's shoulders. Do you find that most libraries are haunted?
Oh, I love that. You hit the nail on the head. Exactly. That's exactly part of the reason why I think there's something very haunting about libraries, just from a very philosophical level. Yeah, because they're full of even just that this can happen in a lot of different ways. They're full of books, number one, that are written, these are like objects that people in creating a book, you pour so much time and energy into creating a book. And so there's that energetic like imprint. And then
Mm-hmm.
also the fact that so many of these books are written by authors who are no longer physically with us. And then you've got the book as a thing that travels from home to person to person. And then you've got the library as a building, as a space, which sees a constant rotation of people coming and going, coming and going.
Mm-hmm.
And for all of those reasons, like you said, that I think are very similar to the theater, I think they're just inherently haunted places.
Mm-hmm. Actually, that's interesting about the books as well, because in witchcraft and whatnot, you can imbue objects with energy and visualizations and that sort of thing, and you're kind of programming something. And it's interesting to think about these books being handed around to hundreds of people, and they're all holding this object and thinking the same things as they're reading, but more personalized, obviously. That's why the book is always better than the movie. But it's interesting to think about, these people maybe subconsciously imbuing this object with their own energies, and then this book
Right.
becomes kind of a magical item if you think about it.
Right. Absolutely. I love that. And yeah, because the when you read something, there's going to be so many different reactions to that thing. Some people are going to really love it. Some people are going to really hate it. Some people are going to be indifferent. They might not even
Mm.
finish it. It just sits in the back seat of their car. And yeah, there's so many emotions poured into it. And that also makes me think of seeing a performance or a play or, a movie even or something theatrical
Mm.
where quite often you're in the audience and you're having these very emotional, very visceral reactions to what you're watching, let alone all of the emotions that the performers are putting into the space. And it's like, how can you not walk into these spaces and feel the echoes of that?
Oh, yes. I literally have goosebumps right now just thinking about it. Oh my goodness. Oh.
Vampires get goosebumps.
Yes, we can. Apparently, we can. Um, yes, we get goosebumps. I I think it's probably just a leftover human thing because I was human once, but you know. Well, thank you, Courtney. I really appreciate this conversation we've been having, and but now we are going to get into some paranormal gossip. For paranormal gossip, our friend Nessie, the Loch Ness Monster, is making an appearance yet again. This time, Nessie has been a little bit bad. So, apparently, recently, a gentleman had his emotional support alligator go missing in Georgia. Joey Henny had a pet that is an an actual alligator, about a meter long, and he's gone missing, and nobody knows where he is except for this vampire. Apparently, this alligator did not go missing. He decided to wander off and take a little vacation. Being an emotional support animal can be quite difficult, especially when you're not a traditional emotional support animal. I don't feel like I would feel any calmer stroking scales. Like, fur is one thing. That's nice. A cat, dog, great. Stroking an alligator, it seems not so calming, but that's a personal preference, I suppose. Anyway, emotional support alligator, Essa, I'm just going to say, Essa decided to go on to a vacation of sorts, and they always wanted to go to Scotland. Well, apparently, Nessie got wind of this missing alligator and decided to see if she could get a reward from Mr. Joey Henny. Unfortunately, Mr. Joey Henny could not be reached for comment, and I think he thinks it's a prank, and it's not actually Nessie saying, yes, I have your alligator. Please compensate me because he's eating all the stuff that I like to eat in the Loch Ness. Anyway, hopefully Nessie will be listening to this and will hopefully return the alligator, because that is the nice thing to do. This gentleman needs his emotional support alligator. So, Courtney, do you have an emotional support anything? I know some people say that they have like an emotional support blanket or an emotional support meal like Alfredo at Olive Garden. Is there an emotional support anything that you have?
Oh, an emotional support anything. I do. I feel like I have an abundance of emotional support blankets
Mm. Mm-hmm.
that I am surrounded by a few as we speak.
I do. I am also a tactile person, and I do like a good faux fur blanket. It's just so cozy. So yes, a blanket I think is a very good emotional support item. Well, Courtney Block, thank you so much for being on the show. It's a delight to talk to you, darling. And where can you be found?
Thank you for having me. It has been amazing to be here and get to chat with you. I am most active on Instagram, so people can find me there if they'd like to at liminal.librarian.
Fantastic. And make sure you tell Courtney any sort of library ghost stories that might have happened to you. That would be nice. Well, that's all for the show tonight, kiddies. Remember, embrace the dark, the strange, and unusual. It just may embrace you back. Thanks to Courtney Block for being our guest today. You can find her on Instagram at liminal.librarian. Please consider becoming a Patreon member of the show. You can be a Baby Bat Sticker Club member where you get stickers every month, or you can be a Tarot Speakeasy member where you can get a tarot reading and tarot cards sent to you every month. Please subscribe on patreon.com/The Vampire Talk Show. This has been an Opus Nox Media production. To find out more, go to opusnoxmedia.com.